The Bible is a strange book, with a lot of bizarre and violent stories found within. And as you know, on this channel I like to shed light on such stories. Not because I think the Bible is a useless cultural relic, but because I like to tease out the implications of taking it at face value for those inclined to do so. There is a cost, and people would do well to count it. Today's story comes from the first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 9 to be exact. First, I'll read and explain the relevant passage, and then offer my thoughts. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Important bullet points. Noah gets drunk. Ham sees his nakedness, whatever that means, and Noah curses Ham's son Canaan, and all of his descendants, upon realizing what Ham had done. Makes perfect sense, right? Putting aside the terrible interpretations of this text used to justify racism, there are still clear moral dilemmas present. If we take what this says at face value, then it's clear that Canaan and his descendants are cursed because of what his father Ham did, not because of what they would allegedly do in the future. Further, there is no hint that Noah did anything wrong in terms of the curse. And in fact, viewing the punishment of descendants of guilty parties as normal is a prevalent theme in the biblical texts. As an aside, it's not like a man has the power to curse an entire line of descendants. It would have to be God who carries that out. Right, Christians? I think it's obvious why a passage like this should be troubling for anyone with a modicum of moral sense. But I also realize people are capable of rationalizing basically anything. There's simply nothing wrong with generational punishment. God is free, and who are we to question his deep and mysterious judgments? In the words of John Calvin on this passage, remember that God's judgments are not called a great deep without good reason. It would be most degrading for God, before whose tribunal we all must one day stand, to be subjected to our judgments, or rather, to our foolish temerity. You could justify believing any insane moral claim about God you wanted using this reasoning, but I digress. There's a more plausible explanation available that doesn't require you to talk like this, however. But first, we need to understand the background of when and how the Pentateuch, and subsequently Genesis, was written. Much to the chagrin of fundamentalists, Moses didn't write the Pentateuch. Rather, it came together after 539 BCE, i.e., after the Babylonian captivity. This is not to say that it doesn't contain older oral traditions and writings, just that it's not really the kind of composition that's merely telling it like it is. Once we understand this, we can see how this sort of story functions as a, quote, vehicle for the later Israelite writer to explain why the hated Canaanites deserved everything they got, including being violently driven from their homeland so it could be given to the Israelites. They have been an accursed race since the beginning, because Ham saw Noah's nakedness. This does look suspiciously like propaganda, after all, and you likely wouldn't bat an eye before calling a spade in any other ancient literature. I guess the moral of the story is that I think the religious believer is on the horns of a dilemma. Either accept very implausible moral positions entailed by straightforward readings of texts like these, or accept explanations that start to make them appear all too human. Which will you choose?